Howdy folks, today I have a beautiful lens to test out for you guys. This guy, the Voigtlander NOKTON 75mm f1.8. It's small, compact, under $1,000. It's got 12 rounded aperture blades and it gives you close to full coverage on the baby medium format sensor of the Hasselblad X2D. So I've got the NovaFlex adapter. We're going to get some sample shots here and share them with you. Essentially, I've only seen great things about this lens, so I got in model Elia today so we could test it out, share some files with you. You can check out all of those below. And I've also brought along a police van, a 65mm f2.8 from Hasselblad. I know they're not directly comparable, it's not the fastest. You could use like the 81.9 to get you closer. But to give you kind of an idea, this is one of the cheaper lenses in the range at $2,750. Just one thing to note, this guy being a 75mm f1.8, once you apply the reverse crop factor of this sensor, it becomes about a 60mm f1.2 for under $1,000. So I'm really excited to shoot with this one. Let's find some spots. We can shoot anywhere because this gives us so much light. There's a wall, let's shoot there. Now, you might be surprised to be adapting lenses like this to the Hasselblad because the previous generations, the sensor readout was so terrible you would get warping. Two developments in the X2D that make this possible. One is a much faster sensor readout. If you go to 14-bit RAW instead of 16-bit, it's twice as fast again. But also the in-body image stabilization. So even if it is like a third or whatever, I can't remember the exact readout time, but even though it is a little bit longer than you might want it to be, the IBIS in this is so good, you can handhold at like half a second. So you're able to get nice sharp shots using adapted lenses. So we shot around Wan Chai district with Elia, just getting some various shots on the street. We'll show you some images in the video here, but stick around to the very end and we'll do some pixel peeping in Lightroom together. So actually one advantage of using manual focus is shots like that where you're focusing through panes of glass. It can be really tricky for any camera system, even the latest eye tracking, blah, blah, blah focus systems. So let's just see how it does. The X2D is leagues ahead of their previous generations, but the current version that I'm using now, hopefully it'll change in the future, this one doesn't have eye detect or continuous autofocus. So let's see how the 65mm does if we can actually get her through the glass. Well, credit where it's due. This is actually, nope, there, spoke and then jinxed it. 3 out of 4, 4 out of 5. Basically, yeah, most of them it is getting through there. But if I put the strong reflection right over her eye, or let's see if we start out of focus. Yeah, then it will struggle to get through there. But no, it's actually doing just fine. Not too bad for one of their cheapest lenses. So you can see the incredible double flare we're getting here off the buildings. It seems like this lens is actually controlling it really well, through the viewfinder at least. We'll need to check the files. So I'll get some samples at wide open, 1.5, then f4, f8 and f16. Whilst it's good to see the sharpness and contrast, a lens like this is made for low light situations. So next we shot in the hotel, just using the available light in the room with, slightly elevated ISO, but able to make use of that f1.5 aperture. Reminder, you can download the sample files below, and whilst you're there, you can check out my Hasselblad Expert Setup Guide. So look, I have to say, I'm actually impressed with both of them. I really like the look that this one's giving, but shooting at f1.8 75mm, it's just difficult if you're shooting people, or any moving subject. I have to say thank you. You did a really great job today of staying still, but as hard as someone's trying, in the 5 seconds it takes to really zoom in and pull focus, breathing, you might move half a centimeter back and forward, and that's enough for it to be thrown out of focus easily if you're doing a tight headshot. So the fast autofocus on the lenses, even this, which is not one of the good performing lenses, the 65mm, you're able to get much more candid shots and get shots that would be otherwise kind of out. So I would say if you're doing anything still life, definitely an option. Or if you're going for that kind of, and I hate to use this as an excuse, but there certainly are people who buy these kind of manual lenses because they want a more, they'll call it an analog look to the shot, but a more of a filmic look. And part of that is that they're just not clinically sharp. So if it is slightly missing focus, it's not kind of an issue. They're looking for the tonal transition throughout the image and the overall aesthetic of the shot rather than how pin sharp are the eyelashes. So if that's going to work for you, great. Otherwise, stopping it down to like f4, you get really nice results as well, but you'll note you're getting more of a hard vignette there. So thank you so much again for joining us today. I'm sorry we don't have you mic'd, so you're just politely nodding to us but rather than actually speaking. You can check out all of her links below and sample files. And reminder, if you haven't already, check out my Hasselblad setup guide. It takes you through the entire X2D and everything you want to know to completely customize it and get the most out of it. Check it out, links in the description below. Thanks, and we'll see you soon. It was lovely shooting with Elia. You can check out her Instagram below. Now I have to say, this Voigtlander, I'm really loving the look of the results. Taking a look here, shooting it wide open, getting loads of beautiful detail. It does have good contrast. However, absolutely nailing focus is a challenge. And another thing, taking a look, say, at this one to the next file, you can see that little, almost imperceptible amount of distortion coming in there between one and the other. That's still, there's a chance of that if you're shooting with the electronic shutter, because this camera doesn't have a mechanical shutter. The faster readout time means you can get shots like this, but there's still a chance that you're going to introduce a little bit of that into your shots. So looking at just the Voigtlander shots here, some beautiful ones, and again going in here when we're down at our base ISO or close to it, ISO 200. Whilst that loads up, you can see it's really getting a beautiful rendition of this lens. I can see myself getting one of these, and yes, there is a soft vignette around the edges. Once you stop down to like f8, then it becomes even more noticeable. But again, it is really a challenge. Let's just bring up the exposure a little bit there to get the shots absolutely perfectly in focus. So there, we're pretty much on the money. This earlier shot, you can see very easy to just miss it by a few millimeters, and the whole thing just looks a bit wishy-washy. Nice, crisp, contrasty, great to be able to pull that selective focus. Taking a look at some of the shots from inside here, up at ISO 800, still we're getting really nice detail, maybe even more detail than a lot of models would want. But wide open, still a nice result. Taking a look at the 65 prime from Hasselblad, you can see super nice and contrasty, and it did actually do quite well at getting through the glass there when I wanted it to. I would say we have to keep in mind the X2D doesn't have incredible autofocus, it doesn't have continuous autofocus, it doesn't have eye or face autofocus. So still, when you're dealing with a shallow depth of field image and such a high-res sensor, the ability to get it right on the eye can sometimes be a challenge anyway. But having said that, you're going to get a lot more portraits in perfect focus with the autofocus lens than the manual, just because this takes at least a second to pull it perfectly into focus, and in that time people move. The other thing you want to keep in mind, there is a big difference between f2.8 and f1.5. So shooting indoors up at like 1600 ISO, for me, I'm already starting to see the pattern noise coming through from the higher ISO on this camera, and I would really rather be at 800 or below for maximum image quality. Having said that, shot like this with a black and white treatment, I think comes up really nicely. So overall, it's going to come down to what you're shooting with. For one of the relatively cheaper autofocus lenses from Hasselblad, the 65 really doesn't do a bad job. But if you're down with manual focusing, I really am a fan of what this Voigtlander is producing. So something that you could consider for any of your cameras, whether you're shooting Nikon, Sony, Canon, Leica, Fuji, whatever it is, you can adapt this kind of a lens and get pretty good coverage. Let me know your thoughts. Check out all of the links below. I'd love to see you on one of my upcoming workshops or tours. I'll see you soon.